Hello, this is Kyle, and we're going back to our Iron Mario Maker, Iron Mario Chef. What did I call it? I think it's Iron Mario Chef application. Let's verify that. Yeah, the project's called Iron Mario Chef. And what did I name the form? Did I name it Iron Mario Chef Form? Because I don't want to end up with one of those form slash project form and namespace naming issues later. Oh man, I wonder why this is taking so long. There we go. Well, okay, yeah, this looks like it'll be okay. I hope. And I have been talking for all of the previous videos about how much more optimized we can make this program if we were to use arrays and functions. And the intent here is to implement both of them. I don't have this very carefully planned out. You're going to see something pretty raw here. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with setting up the array, and we'll make a function that uses the array. And using that, we'll end up with something very efficient. It's not finalized. There's at least one more thing I want to do, so this won't be the last Iron Mario Maker video. In fact, I can think of two more pretty good optimizations we could do with this. I'll need to plan better for the next one, which would be about making a class, about object-oriented programming in this environment. But first we want an array. The array, I am simplifying things still a little bit. It's going to be nicer than it was, but it's going to be an array of strings. I'm going to represent the course parts as just strings, a string representing that part. And that means, unfortunately, that there's going to be this part where I am just rapidly entering text, and so I will probably skip that a little bit for the purpose of this video. But first, I guess we'll set up the nice array setup. It's an array of strings, so you denote that with square brackets. That this means array of strings. I'm going to name it parts. I'll call it parts. No reason that's a bad name. And then initializing an array, you can say new string with square brackets. You can give it a length if you wanted, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to initialize it using these curly brace friends. And when you do this, parts ends up getting a value. And if I take the very first part here, which I guess is question mark block, you can see it's a string. My only error, my only recommendation is the unnecessary assignment of a value to part. That's because it's not used yet. But this is a valid array declaration. The square brackets say, treat this as an array. String says the data type of the entire array is string. The name is parts, and it's being assigned the value of whatever's in the curly braces become the elements, and the number of elements. And the number of elements in an array is immutable. Now, I'm not meaning this to be super instructional. You're getting instruction in class, and I'd hate to be redundant with this. I'm recording this, by the way, right before the week 4 class. So let me put in this list, and I'll work out the exact mechanics of this later, because it is going to be a little different from what we've done. But this is the part with the huge amount of typing, and so I think I'll play it now with some sped up. I'll play it fast now. Okay, I'm going to say that's done. What a monstrosity. It takes up a lot of lines. I could certainly condense it to more than one line if I thought that were advantageous or important. And let's just say I don't. And there's some things that are going to be different here. I mean, I might find a way to, identify certain game styles for certain power-ups, just like I did before. But already, here is an array of strings. How many elements are in this array? Let's find out. Message box.show, and we'll just output something along the lines of, say, parts.length. It looks like it wants it to be a string. Of course it does. The length method of the array class, or you might say function, returns the number of elements. And it is the number of elements. It's not the upper bound. So we'll actually see how many parts there are here. It's not going to be 100% accurate. We're ignoring the Super Mario 3D World style. And we are oversimplifying a few of the parts that have different features or appearances, or names, I suppose, in the different styles. Why didn't it pop up? Oh, 124. Why? Okay, I guess I did it in the calculate button. That makes sense. I mean, does that make sense? We'll find out. 124. That's interesting. Now, it's worth noting, I'm not going to write the number 124 anywhere. I don't want arbitrary numerals in here. So I'm interested in that number, but I'm not going to use it for anything. What am I going to do with this? Well, I don't know. We've got arrays now. The part where we identify the game style and the course style, that could also be simplified with arrays, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. Maybe I'll do it offline. But looking at the part where the parts are assigned, if primary part equals 0, basically what we want to do is get that random value. It was before I was only doing power-ups, and so the primary part, the part went up to number of parts. The number of parts is, I'm going to replace that value with parts, the array name, dot length. And note my casing here. My casing is of some importance. 0 to parts dot length. And that means my number of parts constant, I can basically get rid of that. In some cases, it's a good idea. Like, I like to do it as a part of my coding. Am I going to tell you this is the best process ever? No. But some cases, I like to destroy my constant. It still exists in my code. Actually, based on that underline, it doesn't. But sometimes it's handy to spot those references to your old constant that you're not using, and then you know where to go and fix things. Okay, so we got parts from 0 to parts.length, right? So this primary part now, it's going to go anywhere from 0 to 123. It's not inclusive of that 124. And you might be saying, like, well, that's really awkward. Are we going to do 123 if statements? And the answer is no. We're going to abandon this decision logic structure. There's parts of it we'll have to rewrite later, but we're going to abandon that. And right here, we're going to have something more along the lines of text box primary part dot text equals, and we're going to get the value in the array at the index, which was called, what did I call that value? The part number. Oh, it was literally just primary. What good naming I used. Why wouldn't I have guessed that? And then I'm going to do text box secondary part dot text equals parts secondary part. Yeah. And I can do my band part. And I didn't even finish this part in the last version of this demo, the last segment of this demo, because it was going to be too awkward to code that much. And look how much I've reduced that code. Now, there are some parts here that are technically less accurate. The style-specific power-up, for example, is just going to say style-specific power-up, and that's maybe a little yucky. There are certainly some things that can be optimized here a little more. But check this out. Check how much neater this is. I have one gigantic array, and the array declaration, yeah, that's messy. That could be nicer. I mean, it's got to come from somewhere, though, and it's a lot nicer than all those if statements. Now, there is something that is improbable, but interesting. Actually, we just saw it there a couple clicks ago. Let me see if I can get another one. There's something that can happen here where the primary part, the second theme part, and the band part, they could actually technically have the same value. I was really lucky to get that one. Maybe I'll just clip that up on the screen right now from earlier in the video. Okay. Yeah, it's possible to get them the same. And so there's different ways we might want to write this function, this behavior. There's a lot we could do. I did talk about how nice this would be to use functions, and there's things we could do to improve this. So let's write a function. Let's start by maybe organizing things a tiny bit. The declarations part is a little bit messy. So we'll put in kind of like regions. Declarations. And we will end this region after all our declarations, which happens, well, technically here. That'll be fine. This is the decision logic. This should probably be changed somehow. And then all the event handlers are also together. Do I have any global variables in this code? I do not. Okay, so here we're going to have a region for event handlers. And then after our event handlers, we will end that region. And I'm going to make a new region for functions. And I'll end that region too. And then what I'm going to do is in this functions region, I'm going to write a function. And the function will be called maybe something along the lines of getRandomPart. Suppose one question is, do I want to get it as a string? Or do I want to get it as an integer? Because I can always extract those values from the array. I think there might be good reasons that I want to use it as a string. Maybe it doesn't matter. Is it possible that it doesn't matter? Let's call it getRandomPart. Okay, so we're going to make it private because why not? It's going to return a string. So the string is the data type. It's the second value in there. I'm going to name it getRandomPart. It's going to have no parameters, I think. The error I'm seeing in the IDE right now, you can see my red squiggly friend there on getRandomPart. When you have a function that returns a value, in this case I've said this is returning a string. If you don't return a string, the compiler considers that to be a significant error. It has to have a return value. So what that's going to be is like this. It's going to be the array of parts has to become global. This is going to seem hard to follow unless you're really well studied or well practiced on this, by the way. Whoa, what did I do? Okay. So I make this array global, meaning it lives up here. I'll probably want to adjust my regions to account for that. And I do that because this array now is going to be accessed in more than one place. Or maybe I should say it, you know what? This was a bad approach altogether. Let's get this out of here. You know why? Because we can just put the only time the random parts are going to be used is in getRandomPart. So like, why would we put it anywhere else? It's enormous. It's awful looking. But this is the right place for it. We have the array of parts. We have this thing. After our array of parts, we're going to get a random part. It's just going to be part. Part number, I guess you could say. And, oh, my randomizer's gone. And right here, we'll fix that part after. So remember what I said about when you take out the constant, you can see the red squigglies indicating the part you've messed with. And so that's kind of what we're seeing there. And then basically all this function's going to do at this point is it's going to return parts part number. Keeping in mind that parts is an array of strings and part number is a value between 0 and the end of the array, it's going to return the string at the random value. So this should work. And now what this is we've made a function that will return a part. And all we have to say here is get random part. And anytime we want a random part, we just call get random part. We could do that a lot of different ways, a lot of different times. I don't know. Does this save any coding? Not really. It kind of moves it. It compartmentalizes it. I think it's a good idea in general anyway. We could probably generalize it to get random thing and make it so that we pass in what we want a random instance of. So yeah, this demo could have been better planned. I don't know whether this was better or not. The arrays were the big efficiency. And typing out the array, that sucked. But I think it does help. There's some other things we want to account for. I was talking about the possibility that the random values could be the same. So we might want to add in a thing here that's like while text box primary part dot text equals text box secondary part dot text. And so like that's as long as they're equal, get random part. And we're going to assign that to secondary. We really want to check if any of them are the same, so we could do it like this. Like, this is awkward, I suppose, but... band part.text or text box primary part.text equals text box band part.text. And so this compound if statement, it's an awkward one. It's saying if the primary part is the secondary part, or the secondary part is the band part, or the primary part is the band part, re-randomize everything. Re-randomize everything. Actually, we don't technically need to change the primary part. And so all that little segment does there. It's actually a pretty expensive operation because it's a loop and it's working with strings. And strings are hard for computers to work with, right? But it should now be impossible for the primary part, the second theme part, and the band part to be the same. This is pretty good. Okay, so changes we made here. The biggest change, maybe obviously, was we changed the nature of the part randomization. All of the randomization of parts takes place in getRandomPart. We create an array of different parts. We could probably switch this up to fit in one line, but it'll still be a giant clump of text, won't it? No matter what we do, more or less. We get a random value, and we're just going to accept a random part and return this. And so we get a random string representing a part. We haven't accounted for the relationship between the parts and the game styles. And so there's a bit of logic we'll have to build in there. But I think this is the core of what I want to do in classes starting shortly. So I think I'm ready to be done for now. The style-specific power-ups, I also need to deal with that. So there's a little bit of logic I'm going to end up adding in. And I think I'll just do that in the next video. It'll just be kind of an extension of this one. It's not covering anything new. One thing we ought to do is put a block comment on this function. Returns a random level part as a string. And the summary is this returns a random Mario Maker level part. That's all it does. Like, there's nothing more complex to it. There's logic we need to add. Like, you know, like here, the Gelectro only exists in Mario 3 underwater levels, for example. So it's really specific what has to happen there. So, yeah, there's optimizations. I might do them offline and then make a little video explaining them, because it's not a new concept or anything. But this version of the Mario Maker, first of all, it's a little more complete. It's a little neater. This part could also be optimized. Like you can see, we can reduce this substantially. If we make an array of course styles, for example, the 10 course styles, then, you know, typing out that array is a little bit annoying. It's not as annoying as 124 parts, but the piece of logic that will output that string ends up being like basically one line, and that's nice. That's nice. Easy to maintain. It'd be nice to introduce enumerations too. We don't really use them as part of this course, but it's sensible for designing this application. I might end up doing that. I'll make some optimizations and I'll come back and I'll tell you about them in the next video. But this is pretty good for now. We got arrays in here. It's nice. This will be handy for Lab 2.